Welcome to the BTS Presents show. We are advocates for Santa Cruz Sanctuary Village. My name is Brent Adams. I helped co-found the project. I've been homeless before and really trying to bring a new project into the community.
My name is Stacey Falls, and I'm a teacher at Santa Cruz High School. We're here because a lot is being done around homelessness, but the vast majority of folks still have no place to go. So you can see in our slide here,
Slide 3,
slide 3, that there's just a lot of folks who just don't have any options, and these people resort to camping in our doorways and bushes. And so our project is really focused on addressing these folks out of the 3,536 who don't have any other options and are currently not being served in our status quo. As you can see in this next slide, there are many reasons people become homeless. We call these the faucets of homelessness. And these, the reasons people become homeless include things from disability or sickness to loss of a job, mental health challenges, substance abuse, difficulty transitioning out of jail, and sadly even coming out of foster care and lacking the stability and support of a long-term permanent family. And the problem is that the conditions of homelessness often exacerbate the challenges of being homeless. So for instance, we've seen many people who turn to methamphetamines to keep themselves awake at night because sleeping outside is illegal after 11 p.m. and so people want to avoid interactions with the police. The other problem that we see is that people are carrying their backpacks with all of the things that they own, and that makes it really hard to get a job. And so once you're in the downward spiral, the problems multiply from there. So our solution, Santa Cruz Sanctuary Village, is to give people a safe place to sleep and keep their things so that they can rebuild their lives before they enter that downward spiral. As you can see in this next slide, according to applied survey research, 72% of our homeless population was actually living in Santa Cruz at the time that they lost their home. So the majority of our homeless population is from here. 53% of our homeless population was here for over 3 years, and 31% were here for more than 10 years. And only 5% were here for less than 30 days. So that transient homeless population that people are really concerned about are actually a really small percentage of the homeless population. So our project is really to make sure that our unhoused neighbors, our fellow Santa Cruz residents, have a place that they can call home in their own town. We are currently proposing a pilot camp of 25 to 35 people. And so the next slide sort of shows what our vision is. So initially it's a pilot camp. It will move between 4 different locations every 90 days. We are a tax-deductible nonprofit, and so the first phase of the camp will be fully funded by private donors and grants. Our initial pilot camp will be comprised of soft-sided structures. So the top part of this slide shows tents and teepees and carports. And then once we've established efficacy, we hope to move towards a village with small, hard-sided structures and microhomes, which is what the bottom picture shows. This is nothing Santa Cruz has ever tried before. While there might have been haphazard camps that organically sprung up in random places, we've actually never tried an organized, regulated camp. But there are a lot of cities around town that have tried sanctuary-type camps, and in the last part of our presentation, we're going to go through some of the case studies of these existing camps. There's copious data to demonstrate the effectiveness of sanctuary-type camps. The first thing we want to talk about, though, is the key elements that make a sanctuary camp a sanctuary camp. We'll start with the conceptual elements, then we'll talk about the material elements, then we'll talk about the case studies, and then finally we'll talk about why it's so important that Santa Cruz have a sanctuary camp like this.
That's really great, Stacey, especially since we're taping this live right now, live television, so you're doing a great job. So the makeup of such a camp, we're really focusing on dignity-creating elements. And that's a list of basic conceptual elements as well as material elements. This next slide kind of showcases a close-up of a clean and safe, nonviolent, clean and sober environment. It's a close-up of a camp visual that we got, that we've been producing with our friends up in Opportunity Village. It's actually produced by the Village Concepts. The next slide, really the basic creation of safety is a set of rules. This slide here shows Camp Quixote's rules. It's a photograph that I took off of their wall. It's in Olympia, Washington. 7-year camp that has moved around 20 different times in that time. The next slide shows a set of rules from Opportunity Village. This photograph was taken by our friend Paul Seaver in Opportunity Village of Eugene. The next slide lists Santa Cruz Sanctuary Camp and Village's rules, which really keys off of those that are existing and proving successful elsewhere. Listing those off: no drugs or alcohol, no violence within the camp, no theft within the camp. Those two, the no violence and no theft, those are zero tolerance rules. While no drugs and alcohol, it's a balance between compassion and hard and tough love. Really trying to figure out that balance. Quiet hours, no repeated disruptions. Really trying to create safety and peacefulness for people who are trying to sleep. And then responsible duties. Each individual within the camp must do 10 hours of service every week, and that's how we end up with this next slide, staffing that 24-hour gate that creates safety. It's a 24-hour gate monitoring. Here we have 3 camps listed. It's Camp Quixote, Dignity Village, Tent City 3. I think one of these is actually also from Opportunity Village. And those gates are manned, have a person there. We call that role responsible person on duty, also with a backup person, assistant responsible person on duty, 24 hours a day, keeping that camp in check, making sure that people sign in, sign out, visitors must check in. The next slide is from Tent City 3. This is a photograph that I had taken of a responsible person on duty. He's wearing an orange vest. We call it an orange vest crew. And he took us on a tour through that camp up in Olympia, Washington. Slide 13, the next slide, next image, shows a person wearing an orange vest cleaning up that neighborhood around Tent City 3. It's at a Methodist church overlooking Lake Washington in a very nice neighborhood. This orange vest clean and safety patrol operates at intervals 24 hours a day, in the morning, going into the evening, keeping the neighborhood clean and safe. Also, there's a bicameral decision-making process that residents and neighbors and the board of directors have a role in decision-making. Also, there's a 501c3 board of directors and the drug alcohol cessation support program. The next slide is another slide, an image that I took in Tent City 3 in Olympia, Washington. This is their computer room and phone and computer charging station. It's also their jobs program. As we know in Santa Cruz, or anywhere actually, a jobs program for you and I would be really just a cell phone and a computer. It's similar for people who are homeless. They need access to computers to check with jobs. But our project, we're highlighting a 3-tier jobs program. Resume writing training, focusing on appearance and interview skills, relationship with the Day Worker Center, Homeless Garden Project, and also there's a Goodwill Employment Center really close in Harvey West neighborhood. The next slide is an image also from Tent City 3. It's a photograph I took of their administration desk. Stacey, why don't you tell us about some of the material elements?
Great. So a bunch of conceptual elements, but then there's also a bunch of key material elements that are important. So the next slide is sort of a mock-up of what we think the camp would look like.
Photoshop mock-up.
And so what you can see is that there's a 6-foot wall with an attractive entrance portal. And right inside is an intake desk so that anybody who's coming and going is accounted for. So, you know, folks who live in a house have the safety of 4 solid walls. They have a door where only they and their guests who they've invited can enter, and that's what makes them safe. And so we want the camp, the residents inside, to also feel safe. And so that's what the wall and the entrance portal accomplishes. The next slide shows what some of the structures might look like inside. Right, so you can see that there's a series of soft-shelled structures, and then we might have things like teepees to sort of create a visual blockage, blocking the dissimilar tents within so that overall the sanctuary village has an attractive appearance. So the next slide kind of shows what some of these camps look like in Seattle, where there's the tents in the parking lots. Those are in the parking lots of various churches. And so there's, the bottom slide there has the carports that are sort of consistent, creating a nice visual atmosphere. Okay, a couple other key material elements, porta potties. That's, the next slide. Obviously, when people wake up in the morning, they want to take care of business, and homeless folks need that dignity as well. The next slide shows some dumpsters and some recycling. Obviously, having people have a way to clean up their camp is really important. The next slide shows a donation intake station, which is really important because it allows the community and the neighborhood to interact with the members of the camp. So this is a picture of neighbors dropping off their supplies. The next slide is lockers. Lockers are sort of self-explanatory. It's important for people to have a place to keep their things. When they go for a job interview, they don't want to be carrying every single thing that they own on their back or in a bicycle trailer. A lot of times people have their important documents and their family heirlooms, and it's really important that people are able to lock that up and keep them safe. The next slide shows another obvious component, a clean drinking water station. We know that homeless people on average die 15 years earlier than the housed population, and sometimes that's because of simple things like not getting enough water. The next slide is a picture of a food storage and preparation area, which is also really important so that people have their own food, but critters and such aren't able to get into it, and so having a place where people can keep their food is important. The other thing that's really important, right now in the pilot camp model, we really want to stick to the basics. There's a lot of places around town that are serving homeless people, and we don't want to be redundant and repeat existing programs. So there's a few things that, once we've established efficacy and we move on to a more solid structure camp, we might include other elements. The next picture shows some showers in Opportunity Village. So there are showers all around town. And we definitely want to make sure that residents of the camp are able to access those showers. And then eventually, Sanctuary Camp will have showers as well. The next slide is also a picture of some showers. And one of the tent cities up in Seattle actually had their shower bay donated by Microsoft, which is pretty cool. Obviously, we also are interested in having laundry facilities, things like that people can access when they're in the camp. But right now we're sticking to the bare bones, which again, this next slide kind of shows the key elements. The little soft-sided structures, the food preparation area, you can see the wall and the entrance portal there, porta potties, bike parking, that kind of thing. So this next slide kind of shows sort of a mock-up of what our layout might look like. And one of the key components here is that women's safe quadrant. Homeless women are really vulnerable when they are on the streets. It's very unsafe for women out there, and so it's really important that when they're in a sanctuary village, it's a safe space, but we also want to give them an additional layer of safety so that when they're in the camp, they have their own designated area where only they can be. So we want to share some case studies because there's a bunch of camps around the country and a lot here in the Pacific Northwest that are working really well. And so this next slide, again, shows how a lot of camps go from being initially tent-based camps to these small micro homes. And so that's what we're proposing initially. This next slide is actually this cover of a report on Dignity Village. So Dignity Village is located in Portland, and at the time that Portland was considering renewing their contract with Dignity Village, they hired Christina Smock, an independent consultant, to do a report on whether they should renew or not. And what Dr. Smock found was that the camp was overwhelmingly supported. 90% of the stakeholders that she interviewed said that it was a great idea and they wanted to see it continue. Some other really great findings that she found, the city of Portland was actually less safe than the neighborhood where Dignity Village was located if you look at police calls. And so what we see is that Dignity Village is a really safe, wonderful place. They're on city land, so this next picture shows a picture of what the camp in Dignity Village looks like. Donated by the city. They operate on $20 per month per person. So folks pay what they can. Some folks who have better means will subsidize other folks. And 200 of the people who have lived in this camp have moved on to self-supported housing. So not even support from the city or the county, but they are able to support and sustain themselves. And part of that is because Dignity Village has a really excellent jobs program and a really excellent micro-business program. So these next few slides are on Tent City 3 and 4, which are sanctuary-type camps in Seattle. And I'm going to let Brent talk a little bit about what's going on in Seattle.
Well, we find that the itinerant camps that exist up north, mainly in Washington State, exist because of a federal statute that was decided by a federal court based on a law that was passed in 2000 called the Religious Land Use and Institutional Persons Act. Which camera may I look at? This one. Hello, everybody. I'm going to tend to be reading off of this, but I want to look at you too and make eye contact. Oh, there we go. And so it's the churches have this legal footwork, this legal foothold that really establishes that a church can use their property for to help the poor, help homeless people if that is part of their mission. And so Tent City 3 and 4, that next slide, that's actually an itinerant camp that stays at Tent City 3 or 4 for 3 months. And I'm going to kind of read off a little bit while we're holding these slides here. According to the police in Seattle, Shoreline, and many other neighborhoods where these camps were hosted, there's been no measurable increase in crime in the neighborhoods where any of these sanctuary-type villages and camps have existed. In May 2004, the Seattle Times published an independent investigation which found that their nonprofit, which is called Share Wheel, Share is one nonprofit, and Wheel is a woman's nonprofit, sanctuary village. They do not affect crime rates. Also, we ask, what is the police coverage at these previous sanctuary itinerant camp locations? Generally, law enforcement has made regular daily contact with these. Unscheduled visits are made several times a day. We'll just hold that slide because we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there, please. Doing a great job, Jimmy, in the booth. This is the model followed by the King County Sheriff's officers under contact with the city. At the previous Woodinville downtown site, also the site at Woodinville Unitarian Universalist Church, and testifying before Woodinville City Council in May 2006, Chief Baxter told the City Council that the arrangement had been successful for Tent City 4 and for Tent City 3 for local residents. Has Tent City, has one of these sanctuary camps ever been located in a residential area or near schools? The findings are yes. Because the hosts are usually a church, they have lots of, they have been in residential neighborhoods. In Bothell, Washington, an elementary school was located within a block of Tent City 4. Previous Seattle Tent Cities have been within 2 blocks of at least 10 schools, preschools, or daycare. On the east side, Tent City 3 has now been located near or beside schools for about half of its 9 sites over 2 years. So we got a lot of data here. Let's proceed on. Let's go back to that slide 36. Got a really awesome image here, slide 36, of a list of locations where Tent City 3 has been located in Seattle, Washington. Many of these have been there as many as 7 times, have been visited over and over and over because the things work so good. We ask, is it successful in moving people out of homelessness with these itinerant style camps? The typical length of stay for average residents is about 6 weeks. Other residents, after living in a more settled, safe lifestyle, surrounded by community volunteers, coming and going 24/7, repair relationships with their families and move home. Let's go to slide 37. This is Tent City 4's list of host locations recently. This is from Wikipedia page, obviously. And so these itinerant camps tend to move every 3 months, and then they move on to another location across town. And this again is due to the City of Seattle and King County's relationship with the state, with RLUIPA. They're legally mandated to move every 3 months. Stacey, we've been actually contacting some of these local churches, and we've been getting a lot of interesting results.
Right. So a lot of the data that Brent was just reading comes from the camps up in Seattle, sort of self-reporting. And so we started the process of investigating for ourselves, are they really as successful as Share Will says? And so we've been conducting interviews with the host churches. And I just wanted to read some of the things that these host churches said, because I think they're really telling of the success. So a few of the questions that we asked, one of the questions was, what has been the work burden on your church? And the answer, this is from Bryn Mawr United Methodist Church in Renton, Washington. They say, none. In fact, it has been an added benefit due to the people in the camp doing extra cleanup on our grounds and parking lot. There has also been added security. And then we asked, how has hosting the tent city impacted your community? Were there blessings? Were there negative things? And they said, we have developed great relationships with these folks. Their presence blesses us. If we could have a permanent camp, we would, but tent city rules dictate a 90-day stay. The increased cleanliness on our property has also been a blessing. When we asked if there were safety issues for the office staff or churchgoers, they said no. There is even an elementary school next to our church, and there have never been any problems there either. So, you know, just the testimony of these churches that have hosted Tent City 3 and 4 is really, I think, really heartening. The next slide shows a picture of Opportunity Village. And Brent actually visited Opportunity Village. And so there's a photo from Opportunity Village, and then the next photo is a photo of Brent in Opportunity Village. And so I'll let Brent say a little bit about his visit to Opportunity Village and sort of the nice contact we're having with those folks up there.
Yeah, I've actually conducted 2 tours of the Northwest, visiting 7 or 8 camps and villages. And some of our supporters have also followed this exodus and gone to visit. Recently, some of our supporters visited Opportunity Village. You see in the background here, that's me interviewing one of the residents, these little micro homes, and it's been very successful. The next slide actually shows this book written by one of the founders of Opportunity Village in Eugene, Oregon. It's called Tent City Urbanism, and we're really happy to build this new movement, West Coast Sanctuary Village Movement. We encourage people to pick this book up or look at it online. You can find it on Amazon. There's several chapters referencing our project, Sanctuary Camp, and laying out the model of what a sanctuary camp is. And so we're going to be moving this concept around from city to city. Salinas, I visited recently, San Jose. There's so many areas where homeless people are congregating. This next slide, it's actually a logo of the city of Santa Cruz. You might wonder why I have that logo. It's really because we want to touch on very quickly, in the last few minutes that we have, of some of the costs of homelessness in general. Average police contact in 2013, as described to the city manager's office by Deputy Chief Rick Martinez, was $180 on average for a police contact with a homeless person. Also in 2012, illegal camping tickets, get this, almost 1,948 camping tickets in the city of Santa Cruz. So that equates to a large amount of police activity and cost that projects like this can really reduce. The fire department spends a lot of money dealing with it. Emergency medical, imagine Dignity Medical, formerly Dominican. But we want to, let's see, go to the next slide, slide 42. This is a photograph that was taken just a couple of days ago. Her name is Deborah. She's 60 years old. She's a former registered nurse. She has diabetes. She's living in the woods of Aptos. But we really want to focus on people like her and show that what are the benefits to the residents of a sanctuary itinerant camp. They'll cease to be homeless. They'll move out of the camp. We're focusing on self-housing. Residents will secure employment, heal the relationships that they have back home. They will be able to pool resources and get housing. They'll be a part of a supportive community where people know their name. Good morning, people will say to each other. Privacy and personal space. There's a space to keep belongings, the reassurance of having a bed each night and not being moved along. Image 44. And that's this is our coming back home to our logo. I think we're getting really close to the end of our show here. Again, Nancy Crusoe and Stacey Falls and I are on our 3-person board. Let's end up at slide 45, please. So we formed this project about a year and a half ago. We've been conducting meetings for the last couple of years. We've had forums, town hall meetings. We had 1,000 people supporting our project by signing on to our endorsement page. We have 2 videos. I'd like you to go to YouTube and put Sanctuary Camp in the search. You'll find 2 videos, one showcasing our tour and another about a presentation. And we're scrappers, we're grounded. We are going to create this project, establish it in Santa Cruz County, and we're going to help hundreds and hundreds of homeless people into the future move themselves out of homelessness. And I'm not quite sure how much time we have. Maybe I could just keep going till tomorrow. Or, do you have more time? Thank you. All right, we want to thank you for watching this BTS Presents show. Again, it's Stacey Falls and Brent Adams with Santa Cruz Sanctuary Village. Thank you.
Enjoyed this program, you can support community television with a generous contribution. Send your tax-deductible donation to CTV 816 Pacific Avenue, Santa Cruz, California 95060. You can also support CTV by giving a donation online at www.communitytv.org. Then press the donate key.
Community Television thanks Hoffman's Bistro for their support. Hoffman's is located at 1102 Pacific Avenue in beautiful downtown Santa Cruz and is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week starting at 8 a.m. They feature live local jazz bands starting every night at 6:30. Hoffman's Bakery makes everything in-house from Ed Hoffman's famous scones to decadent wedding cakes. For more information, visit hoffmansantacruz.com or phone 420-0135.
People say that Ace is high.